Hello and welcome to Newspeak. I'm Peter Whittle and I'm joined, I'm pleased to say, by Amy Gallagher of Stand Up to Woke and our senior fellow, Dr. Philip Kiszely. Unfortunately, Rafe cannot be with us this week, but our best wishes to Rafe. Before we talk about the various subjects of the week, Philip, as our national organiser, we had a conference, didn't we, in Salisbury? It was a big success, wasn't it, last weekend?
It was a huge success. It was absolutely packed out. It was in the most beautiful venue, the medieval hall. And I think Emma Webb just captured it when she said it was the most important event she'd ever spoken at.
Right.
Many of us speak at lots and lots of events, and I felt the same, actually. I felt as though it was just so important for locals to get together, just to be in the same room and speak to each other. And this was a regional conference. It was a small, region. It was the Southwest, completely sold out. So I thought it was just absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, so it was a great, well done to you, Philip, and also to our one of our great organisers down there in the Southwest, Gary Ryder. Who pretty much put the whole thing together. This is terribly, terribly important, what we're doing here. And there will be one, hopefully, in the summer, in July, further northward.
There will indeed. We're looking to put together a conference at the beginning of July in Manchester. So it will have a slightly different theme. So it's watch this space.
Great, fantastic. Anyway, while we're doing interesting and important things, the world obviously goes on. So we're starting off this week. You can't get away from it whether you want to or not. We have mentioned it before. We've got to kind of come back to it simply because they won't let it go. This is program Adolescence, Philip. It's now being seen, is it not, in secondary schools?
Yes, this is down to our Prime Minister, Keir Starmer. He's saying that it's so important that he wants all adolescent children to watch it. So it's being rolled out in secondary schools. Now, he's gone on record, I think more than once, saying that this is a documentary. And of course, it's not a documentary. It's fiction. It's Netflix. It's produced by Warp Films, which is a Sheffield-based company. And they're very much part of, for viewers who are familiar with cities like Sheffield, they're very much part of Sheffield's creative city identity. And that's very leftist, it's very right on, and it's quite radical, actually. So that's where the film comes from in relation to Netflix as well. And it's very much part of a long tradition, actually, that we have in this country of the social problem film on the one hand, but social realist television on the other. So you could say it's in the tradition of the Wednesday Play and Play for Today and juvenile delinquent films of the 50s and
Kathy Come Home,
that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's all of that kind of thing, but it's slightly different in the sense that it completely sidesteps the main issue. And now viewers will know about this in the sense that it has a working class white boy who kills one of his classmates, who kills a girl because he's radicalized online. So there are all sorts of things going on there. One of the interesting things about it is that this film is just one take. It's one shot all the way through. So it really draws the viewer in. And it's very intense. It's very intense acting, but you cannot step away, that reverse shot thing, which allows you to step back and think. So you can't think. It's very didactic. It's very Brechtian. It's just generally very leftist, and it absolutely misses the point. The reason Keir Starmer is so keen on it is because it misses the point. It actually deals with it responds very much to his political agenda. So that's what he wants to push. It's very, very worrying that that's the case. And it's very worrying that this, as I say, this piece of fiction is being presented as a documentary, because it's anything but. It really isn't, Stephen Graham, I think, first had the idea and put it together with a writer, and it was based on a couple of real life incidents. Both of these incidents involved children of colour. Actually, it really wasn't about they've just whitewashed it, they've just changed it. And so what it tends to do is demonize and put it and present a slightly different narrative, the incel narrative, and it sounds demonizes a white working class kid of 13 years old along those lines.
On that note, Josh, just in case you haven't seen it, I'm sure there are people around who haven't seen it. Even though apparently, everyone is terrible if you haven't. Camille Badenoch apparently was top. But just in case you haven't, here's a clip of what we're talking about.
Police! What are you looking for? You're making a big mistake. He's only a kid.
Dad, I haven't done anything.
It looks very sort of well done and everything, Amy. What do you make of this? I mean, you've seen a lot of clips of it.
Yeah.
And everything.
I just think the hysteria around it is crazy. It feels like we're in one of those moments where something just takes over. It's like BLM or something. In that it's the idea that this should be shown in schools. I have no idea why it would be shown in schools. What are young people supposed to get from that? I think it's quite problematic in many ways. It almost sexualises children, this kind of obsession with incel, which means involuntary.
He's too young to be an incel, isn't he?
He's 13 years old, and one of the characters, the psychologist, is asking him about his sex life.
I know. To me, that's totally inappropriate. And the idea that would then be shown to children in schools, in that you could then introduce these ideas to them. If they're kind of innocent 12 or 13-year-olds and they've never come across these ideas, the idea that you then show it to them seems quite bizarre to me. But it's, the emphasis is on kind of what they call the manosphere or Andrew Tate or influencers that talk about masculinity. And I think this is just a way to clamp down on young boys, really. That, it's... apparently they're all also looking at changing school guidelines in their kind of relationship. I think it's PHSE it's called, or whatever, relationship lessons to get people starting to talk about the internet and Andrew Tate. They seem obsessed with Andrew Tate. And actually, a lot of young boys aren't that into him. Actually, when you look at his followers, most of them are ethnic minority boys. And Andrew Tate is obviously a Muslim. So a lot of white young boys don't identify with him, actually. But they've got to be told to avoid him. To me, if I was a school child and I was told to avoid this person, the first thing I do is look them up because it's like interesting. Why, So to me, they're manufacturing an entire problem. And as Philip says, it's to deflect away from the current issues, actually. We know that the rise of misogyny correlates to the rise in immigration.
Well, you've just done a whole program about it.
Yeah.
This was the program we did for Heresies, wasn't it? About the rise in sexual crime.
Yeah, that it's coming from first generation immigrants, usually from places like Afghanistan and Pakistan, where there are high rates of rape and sexual assault, and we don't have that here. I mean, this story, the idea that this would somehow influence government policy, it's totally unrepresentative of what's happening in the country. We don't have an epidemic of young white boys stabbing.
I was going to say,
white
can
girls.
you think of a case?
I can't even think of one case. I mean, that's what No, and it's in terms of social media, actually, the people that are being radicalised more are girls.
Right.
We don't see any discussion of the radicalisation of kind of trans ideology or far left ideology, and that is actually a far bigger problem. We don't see the emphasis on social media effects on girls. So this is just a totally fabricated problem, in my opinion, and it's been used to deflect. That's what I think it is.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true, and you feel as though you could see Keir Starmer's nail prints in it. He's grabbing onto it for dear life because, bearing in mind, we've just had Pakistani rape gangs abusing white working class kids, and now immediately that coin is flipped on its head, and now we've got a white working class kid as a villain. And none of that, we talked about the rape gangs at length on this show, but there's a desultory inquiry that they're spending about £5 million on, which is peanuts, absolutely peanuts. And they're focusing on this. They're making this a plank of their education policy. It's utterly absurd. It's fiction. But in a way, that's really appropriate for the Labour Party, isn't it? Because all of their policy, especially when it comes to social welfare and children, is built around fiction. And nothing's going to change in the foreseeable future.
It's not the first time. I mentioned Cathy Come Home there at the beginning. Not the first time that programmes have made an enormous impact. And Cathy Come Home was like a documentary, but it was a drama, wasn't it, Ken Loach? One of these very, very early ones.
But it dealt with a very specific thing. It dealt with homelessness, and it didn't kind of. I'm not a big. My God, I'm not a big fan of Ken Loach, but it at least it didn't skirt around the problem. It was. It worked as a piece of drama. This fundamentally doesn't work as a piece of drama because it's built on a false premise, and the characters. If you look at the characters and if how they relate to each other, you could almost write it yourself. You've got the black policeman, you've got the white villainous child, you've got the hapless working class couple with this child who's out of control. And yes, it's very well acted, and yes, it's massively over the top, but it doesn't actually do anything. It doesn't achieve anything as a piece of drama for social change, which is what the Wednesday play and Play for Today and all of that stuff did do. Yes, that was still from the left and it was still achingly right on, but at least it dealt with a kind of reality. This very definitely deals with fantasy.
Yes. There has been a grooming gangs, rape gangs drama, hasn't there?
Yeah, Free Girls.
Three Girls.
Yeah.
A few years ago now.
Yeah, but it didn't get anywhere near as much attention as Adolescence has, and it certainly didn't. I mean, Keir Starmer didn't, or the then Prime Minister, I should say, didn't then meet with, the writers, and there wasn't a kind of push to show it in schools, whereas arguably, the grooming gang scandal is far bigger. As I said, there's not a problem with young white boys killing young girls, but there was grooming gangs affected. It's hard to quantify how many people were affected by it. And yet there was never any push to get it discussed in schools or to show any kind of material that would open up a discussion, when arguably there may be, tens of thousands or maybe hundreds of thousands of young girls who were affected by it. They may have known someone or what have you, or seen something about it. And there's never been this kind of public desire to have a discussion about it. And I wonder, we've had that with Elon Musk tweeting about the grooming gangs at the beginning of this year. We did have this kind of sudden surge of people talking about it. And I wonder if it's interesting the time of this, because this has totally taken over the discussion.
Yes.
Hasn't it?
Yeah. It's almost as though it's an exercise in damage limitation, isn't it? Thank God we've got this. We can focus on this. We can move the focus of attention away from black kids, who do have problems and who are mired in this pop culture which involves knives and violence and rape and the sexualization of white girls in particular. Their pop culture absolutely does that. It's almost as though he's saying, thank God we've got this, because we can talk about something else and we can move away. We can put the rape gang scandal behind us. That's what I'm getting from this.
Yes,
the issue of knife crime is an issue of boys stabbing other boys, and if you wanted to break that down, it would be black boys stabbing other black boys. There isn't, as I said, issues of boys stabbing girls, and it's not driven by misogyny that we can see.
But there were other things as well in this. For example, the parents in it are a pretty nice couple. I mean, and they seem to be basically happily married, and essentially, at a loss to know what to do. And also the boy himself. I mean, he's a bit creepy, I felt. But the boy himself is clever. He's asked what his favourite subject is. It's history, and his favourite figure from history is Brunel.
Right.
And as someone has said on Twitter, how many
it's a far-right trope.
Yes, exactly. How many people have been asked after they have done, like the grooming gang, oh yes, Brunel was my favourite figure too. Of course not. I mean, he's not a typical kind of example to use in any shape or form.
No. And an interest in history is good. I mean, it's strange that they're pathologizing or problematizing things that are good, actually. They're flipping everything on its head and making us wary of, I think, young boys or young people who are interested in an alternative narrative to what they are given, that they're not interested in kind of challenging whiteness or rejecting all the figures of history. Actually, they want to know about great engineers and great figures of history. And that is what's, that's the issue.
But one other point to add on to that, if you think about young boys over the last few years, if they are interested in online influencers, that kind of boy upper working class, lower middle class, intelligent, thoughtful. It's Jordan Peterson and people like that who have really impacted on them. And Jordan Peterson teaches them about self-respect, about responsibility, about sorting their own lives out. I can't see anything that's poisonous about that kind of influence.
No. Yes. Also, at one point as well, the psychologist, child psychologist, she's a very good actress, but, she asks him, does your father have any female friends? I think along the same line, this is to show the toxic masculinity of the father, maybe. And I just sort of thought,
Yes.
I'm sorry, but my father didn't have any female friends. And if he had have done, my mother would have had something to say about it.
Yeah.
That men on the whole, many men don't have female friends in the way she means.
No, and it's projecting her idea of sexism onto someone,
Yes,
which is
exactly.
not what it is.
Yes, it's one of those odd things. But anyway, the point is we're stuck with it, and it's going to go into schools and all the rest of it. It's kind of depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the government is actually basing this kind of policy on that.
Completely predictable.
Yeah.
Completely predictable.
Anyway, back in the excuse me, in the real world, Amy, good thing, bad thing, trade war with America, what? What's this
Yeah.
tariffs thing about? It seems to me on paper that it's actually not bad.
It's not too bad, as I understand it. So Trump's calling it Liberation Day. He's announced a series of tariffs across the world, actually, Europe and Britain and other places. This is something he wanted to do for a long time. He's famously said that tariff is his favourite word, because he feels that, that he's blaming the deindustrialisation of America on an inequality in tariffs between different countries. So he's raising, the tariffs into America and importing goods. He's on the lead up to this announcement, which came this week, which is that he's putting a 20% tariff on the EU, and because we're outside of Brexit, we only get 10%. So that's kind of the good news. It's very pro-Brexit, which save us billions of pounds, actually. So that's positive. But on the lead up to this, there's been several criticisms of the UK in relation to free speech. So first of all, we had J.D. Vance's speech in Munich to European officials. He spent about 5 minutes talking about the issues of free speech in Britain, focusing particularly on these buffer zones where people can't, within a certain radius around abortion clinics, they're not even allowed to talk to people who may be having an abortion. And then when Keir Starmer met with J.D. Vance in the Oval Office and in the White House, they raised the issue of free speech again. The US State Department last week put out something about free speech, saying there'll be no free trade without free speech. So they're using free speech as a kind of negotiation tool or a leverage. To what extent they'll use it remains to be seen. I mean, we've been given this 10% tariff. Keir Starmer may be able to negotiate them down on that. That remains to be seen. But I don't know whether, free speech will impact on that decision, because obviously if free speech is restricted here, it has an effect on American media companies and so on. So they want to allow freedom of speech here for them. But I guess the general thing to say is that it just shows our reputation internationally, actually. If you imagine 20 years ago, America would be saying that we don't have freedom of speech, you'd be shocked. We would always have said we were a free country. But, it hasn't taken long for our kind of international reputation to totally change, that even in discussions around tariffs and goods and free trade, that free speech would come into that. And it is quite, I feel a bit disheartened, but I feel a bit,
Well, it's not unlike, when we say, we shouldn't trade with this company because of this country because of their human rights record.
Yeah.
It's a similar thing, isn't it?
It's that kind of thing. It's almost a kind of bargaining tool, isn't it? But one of I think for me, the key word is reciprocation, isn't it? And just looking at the figures, I'm just quite astounded what people expect from America, because America pays much more in tariffs than anybody else. And the left-wing commentariat in this country, the Emily Maitlisses and the news agents and all of those people are saying things like, what good friends they are, eh? They're charging you 10% for their friendship. we charge them 10%. It's just reciprocation. And it's that anti-Americanism, that sense of, well, we expect more from you and we don't expect to give anything back. And we will produce this false narrative to make you, literally a false narrative to make you dislike America and particularly dislike Trump. But the great thing about it, of course, is the EU 20% thing. You know, we're out of there. We're saving a fortune. And our wonderful colleague, Rafe tweeted about that. This is down to Brexit, and of course he got a huge response back, both pro and negative.
Oh, has he? Yeah, I mean, I think. What is this really gonna end in? Because people are saying, "Oh, we're going to have a trade war. This demolishes the whole settlement of the post-war era and everything." Are you a kind of free trade fundamentalist?
No, I'm not a fundamentalist, but I do generally believe in free trade.
Yeah, but what does that actually mean? What do you know? I mean, it's one of those things people kind of like talk a lot about it without actually explaining what it actually means. I mean, free trade seems to me a total carte blanche.
Yeah, I think a free trade fundamentalist is almost like a free speech fundamentalist in the sense that they don't want any kind of safety net.
Right.
And I think on the what you certainly don't want an EU bloc that is just all about rules and regulations and stifles any communication, one between countries, but also stifles business. On the other hand, you don't want an absolute free for all because only the big beasts will survive. Smaller businesses will go under.
But basically, it just means that America is going much more protectionist, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of separating itself off from us, and then maybe going forward we can't think of them so much as, I don't know, they will support us or that they will see eye to eye with us. That's what it feels like. In that, I mean, America have at least kind of treated us differently from the EU. Obviously, we're outside of Brexit, but I don't think it's just that. I think that it's almost like they see us as separate from the EU. They obviously, our parliamentary system has influenced theirs, so we have that, history with them. But it does feel very much that there is, a kind of separation happening actually in terms of America along all sorts of lines. I would say cultural as well, but this trade as well. That it feels that we can't rely on them. I don't know that there's a separation happening. I would say
it just feels as though they're doing what Donald Trump and his inauguration speech set out to do, which is put America first and look after American interests. And you see, all of this seems eminently reasonable to me. As he said, oh, well, Britain are charging 10%, so we're going to do the same. And it's great that he just has that very easy way of articulating these things. But he's just doing what he set out to do. He's putting America first. And as far as I'm concerned, that's perfectly fine.
It's not really, when people say, oh, well, this is one of the benefits of Brexit, it's entirely fortuitous.
It's entirely fortuitous.
Oh, yeah, we should vote for this.
We didn't vote for, I mean, in other words, the fact that
it's a byproduct of
we even had
Brexit.
Trump. Actually, Trump was elected the year of the referendum, wasn't he, first? 2016. But no, it's sort of one of those things. I wonder what he would think, therefore, and what America would think about France. Well, of course, France is part of the EU, so it's a 20% tariff. But, what's happened there this week is just quite incredible, is it not? With Marine Le Pen, effectively, she's got a 4-year prison sentence, correct me if I'm wrong, and a 5-year ban on any kind of political activity. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, it's similar to what has happened to Trump in that it was a kind of lawfare that was used against her. I mean, it's quite difficult to understand. I mean, it's embezzlement is what she's been charged with. It's to do with EU fees, of EU funding that she used for her own party to the sum of around 7 million euros, I believe. But I think, people are very much feeling that it was used against her because of how popular she was becoming. She was kind of, came second in the last kind of several elections. Recent polling has shown she was favourite, ahead of the current president or prime minister there. It was the rise of what the so-called far right in Europe and in France. Of course, she's not, well, I don't know if you could call the Front National far right, but she is anti-immigration and she probably similar to Reform here. And it seems deeply unfair because of how popular she was. And I guess it's a question around, democracy actually, and are people allowed to vote for who they want to vote for, regardless of whether they've broken the law or not, and whether some kind of legislation has been used against them. Obviously, in America, it didn't stop Trump from winning the election.
Yes.
I think, what was he charged with? Misuse of funds or something like that. I think people have difficulty understanding some of these crimes that are used against people. They're not kind of, crimes of kind of morality that we would consider would really tarnish a person's character. It's almost like they get them on a technicality.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's almost a technicality, and she isn't the only French politician who's been charged with this. They've all been charged with this. It's just that she's been found guilty, and you have to ask yourself why she's been found guilty. There's this bill from 1993 that really connects the judiciary with politics, and even the politicians on the other side are saying that this is not good, because this can be used in any way that bad actors want it to be used. And I think that's what we're seeing. Just to get back to your original point, we know what Trump thinks, because he said that this is pretty much exactly what happened to me. It's the same thing with the impeachment. So I think it's very worrying for France, and I think France is teetering on the edge of something that looks incredibly ugly if this carries on.
Yes. As you said, they would get everyone on these particular rules.
It's just that she was found guilty.
It's the grey area. You did the same with the Brexiteers from this country, and generally people that they don't really approve of.
Yeah.
And it's as you say, it's something to do with money that should be used for EU purposes in your EU parliamentary role, and money that's used for your party, wherever that might be. It's actually a very grey area.
It's a grey area. They're two pots, and she was found guilty because her party members had done nothing for the EU stuff, but other people they had been, or they'd been in the building. It is ridiculous. It's that level of detail, and as Amy correctly points out, it's a technicality.
Actually, isn't there something else happening in Germany along this point? I think that there is, generally in Europe, there is this growing reliance on the courts.
Yeah. It's lawfare.
And as you said, lawfare, technicalities to somehow bring to heel people they don't like.
Yeah, it's a terrible thing for politics in general that it's going down this route, in that, it'll prevent a lot of people going into politics, because you've now got to sort of imagine that you will be faced with some kind of lawsuit against you, and do you want to take that on, and are you wealthy enough, and have you got a family, and all that sort of thing. But it just tarnishes politics in general, that it's becoming a game of legalism, really, rather than a kind of genuine democratic process.
Yes, there's one thing about this actually as you say, you're quite right. Marine Le Pen has really changed actually what used to be called Front National, which was actually it was just dodgy in the early 20s. I don't know whether you remember in 2002, her father, Marine Le Pen, actually, who was a pretty
it's anti-Semitic.
Yes, anti-Semite. He was effectively. What happened now? He got to the second round. It's taken them this long of the presidential election, and people were terrified about this. And so they said, hold your nose and vote in Chirac, as it then was, who was a bit of a crook. Again, another crook. He's been done, hasn't he? As has Sarkozy. It's there's a lot of corruption in France. So that was that. She's kind of whitewashed it. She's kind of brought it on. However, if this works and she can't stand or whatever, I don't know, even is she appealing?
She's appealing. There are several routes they could go down. She can be pardoned, but she could appeal. She says she's going to appeal, so I assume this is going to be ongoing. But
the point is
that's going to take time.
Yes,
and I think they don't have time. I think they're teetering on the edge of the abyss.
Well, no, but this is the point. Yes, I see what you mean. But there is this quite dynamic figure of Jose Bardella.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who's waiting. And this might be his time. He's 28?
Yeah.
Do you know much about him?
He's
Very
kind
slick, yeah?
Yeah, rising star, isn't he, in France? He's kind of the number 2 of the Front National. Very articulate. I think he came from poverty. He's quite popular.
Like a J.D. Vance figure.
Yeah, like a J.D. Vance figure. I just don't know if he's as popular as Marine Le Pen. So I don't know, and we don't know what he's like would be as a leader. But he would take over, I guess, if she can't run. Yeah. He would be the next.
Oh, he would have been her prime minister.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if he took over,
but
all is not lost.
Yeah, I think the point remains that this lawfare is there to scupper any attempt from the populist right, from the right generally, to have any kind of power. Anybody who is seen to be popular, anybody who is seen to be powerful, personally powerful, like Trump, like Le Pen, they are attacked immediately. And I think it's that. Yes, they, the system might well survive, and certainly the party will survive. But it's that sense of attack that I think will undermine the whole process.
Well, would you like to see them get into power?
Well, certainly, as far as the father was concerned, because I think you're right, he was a horrible anti-Semite. But I think they are slightly different now, and I think it's about a broader issue. It's about the sweep of populism across Europe, which is massively important.
And also, people don't often realise quite what France is facing, do they? I mean, the level of possible breakdown.
No, anybody who's been to Paris recently in the last few years would know, but if people haven't, then they don't.
And I think, given what they are experiencing on the ground, this issue with Marine Le Pen is just going to radicalise people further. That's an issue. They're going to feel like, their democracy is being squashed, and their freedom to vote for who they want to. Yeah. And they're going to, all sorts of conspiracy theories will come out, I imagine, about what, who's behind this, and people will be angry, and that's a problem. I mean, that we saw that with Trump a little bit. It actually ends up benefiting them, benefiting Trump. Yes. He was seen as a martyr, and people sort of, got behind him who ordinarily wouldn't. And you've seen in relation to this, what's happened to Marine Le Pen, that politicians across the political spectrum are saying this has gone too far. There's even people on the left saying, no, this is dodgy, it shouldn't be happening.
It's blatant.
Yeah.
Because people know.
Politics and law should be separate.
Yeah. Well, when is the election?
2027, the next one.
27, so it's quite a long time. Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we're going to carry on talking. We're actually going to be talking about this appalling case of a WhatsApp group of parents complaining about the school and then being visited by the police, can you believe? If you'd like to kind of listen and watch us talking about that, please do become a member, won't you? Because then you get the exclusive content, not just on this show, but on all the other shows too. But if not, then we shall see you next time. In the meantime, have a good week, won't you? Thank you. Bye. Our mission at the New Culture Forum is and always has been to defend and celebrate Britain's history, culture, and its people, and indeed Western civilization, at a time when both are under sustained attack. We have grown from small beginnings to become the country's most influential right-leaning cultural think tank. Our content is watched and read by some of Britain's most influential political figures. But now, we need your help. If you believe in what we do, then please do become a member. For as little as £4 a month, you can make a vital contribution to what we do. As a member of the NCF family, you will help ensure that we can continue to produce quality content online, such as our 3 weekly programs, Whittle, which is our flagship interview show, Newspeak, our panel discussion show, and Deprogrammed, which is targeted at Britain's youth. As you probably know, in addition, we produce important documentaries, such as our critically acclaimed 6-part series, The West, a stunning celebration of the history and genius of Western civilization, and our ongoing documentary series, Heresies, with hard-hitting episodes tackling subjects such as immigration, gender ideology, and BBC bias. But the New Culture Forum is much more than a YouTube channel. We don't just complain about Britain as it is, we provide real solutions and clear policies on how we can push back against the madness and restore sanity to this nation. Our presenters are now highly sought after and have become familiar faces across the media. Our prestigious annual Smith Lecture and our regional and indeed national conferences have attracted world-class speakers. Perhaps most importantly, we are the only organisation on the right of politics that has launched a national movement without actually being a political party. And uniquely, through our NCF Locals programme, we've established some 30 active branches in towns and cities right across the nation, from Edinburgh to Exeter, and with many more on the way. We're very proud of what we've achieved, and our members have made it possible. In return, our members receive access to exclusive content, invitations to private events, free or discounted tickets to our conferences and lectures, free copies of our books, and much more. I very much hope that you'll join us too by clicking the link in the description or going to our website, newcultureforum.org.uk. Now is the time that we need your help. Thank you.